What does it look like when someone is pushed to the edge of grief? The man never thought he loved his wife until the day tragedy struck without warning. One moment he was joking with her, the next dash. When Davis woke up from a coma, his father-in-law delivered the devastating news with tear-filled eyes. Strangely, Davis didn't break down crying. Instead, he remained unusually calm. The chaotic operating room still bears traces of the doctor's frantic efforts, yet Davis only bends down to wipe the blood off his shoes. He even felt a bit hungry, so he walked over to the vending machine and bought a bag of chocolate. But of course, the candy got stuck in the slot. Davis felt a flicker of frustration but quickly turned away and numbly asked the doctor a question. Faced with the doctor's indifferent response, Davis didn't say a word. He simply took a quiet photo of the vending machine's complaint address. Then he returned home alone. His wife had left a note on the fridge the day before, but Davis didn't feel like reading it. He sat at the dining table, eating frozen food, and thought the house felt emptier without her. His parents traveled from their hometown, and the funeral proceeded as scheduled. Davis looked around and saw everyone crying. They clung to one another, offering comfort, as if the world had ended. But Davis, the husband, remained expressionless. In fact, he thought everyone was being a little too dramatic. Only when he noticed people staring did he realize maybe he was supposed to be sad too. So he slipped away to the bathroom. Davis tried to mimic how a grieving husband should act, but found he couldn't even shed a single tear for his wife. He stared at the condolences on his phone without replying. Instead, he picked up a pen and wrote a formal complaint to the vending machine company about that terrible experience with the stuck chocolate.
As I was very hungry, and also my wife had died 10 minutes earlier. I'm not saying that was your fault. We were in a car accident. Remarkably, I escaped without a scratch. I'm not trying to dramatize my claim. I just want to be thorough. Maybe I should start from the beginning.
Davis had a life many envied, and he never let himself slack off. Working in marketing, he woke up every day at 5:30 a.m., groomed himself, exercised, caught the earliest train, and analyzed the day's data along the way. He often saw the same passengers every morning. One janitor in particular liked to chat with him, but Davis didn't engage. He lied and said he was just a regular salesperson. He didn't know why he lied. Then he popped in his earbuds and shut the world out. Davis never imagined he'd become a briefcase-carrying white-collar worker, but his wife's father was a founding shareholder of the company. To avoid gossip, Davis always showed up in peak form. He hated the idea that people thought he used his marriage to climb the ladder, so he worked harder than anyone else. As for how he met his wife Julia, it was more like a fast food romance. They fell for each other at a bar, exchanged a few compliments, and 3 hours later, they were officially together. He kept hearing those words, "together forever," echoing in his head, and soon after they were married. But clearly, Phil, Julia's father, didn't like Davis. After all, Davis came from a modest background. He even told Davis to his face, "I don't like you, Davis."
I don't like you, Davis.
Davis didn't know much about Julia. She was kind, worked with special needs children, and laughed loudly when she was happy. He felt like he didn't really understand her. Julia often said he was always distracted. Before he knew it, Davis had filled pages with memories, just to file a vending machine complaint. It was as if that stuck candy bar mattered more than his wife's death. Phil showed up in the room. Something had shifted between them after Julia's passing. The next morning, as the sun rose like always, Davis woke up early, just like he always did. He's meant to groom himself after his workout, but staring into the mirror, he suddenly loses the will. So he threw down the tweezers and marched straight to the office. His colleagues are stunned. Julia just died yesterday, yet Davis acts like nothing happened. Coworker Amy came into his office to comfort him, but Davis looked surprised by her sympathy, as if she was being overly sentimental. Then he began talking about work tasks. Amy thought he might have lost his mind. Davis quickly called a meeting and even cracked jokes in front of the team. But Phil suddenly appeared and interrupted him. He insisted Davis drop everything and dragged him to a nearby bar. Phil complained about the cocktails being overpriced. He just couldn't understand it.
We haven't really talked, Davis, not since everything. I love Julia. It's a father's love. Man loses his wife, he's a widower. Child loses a parent. They're an orphan. But losing a child, there's no word for this. And it shouldn't be. You and I have to continue on. I want you to know you've been of value to me. And not just in business, but in my life. And keep your emotions close to the vest. That's good. That's strong. I do the same.
It's the atmosphere.
What?
But while Phil poured out his heartfelt thoughts, Davis responded by explaining why the drinks at the bar were more expensive. Phil believed that Davis still hadn't recovered from his grief. He said he would use Julia's life insurance to start a scholarship foundation for students who excel. That would become the last thing Julia left behind for the world. The next day, a package arrived at the house. It was a coffee machine Julia had ordered before she died, as if to say she had never really left. Davis's father reminded him to fertilize the trees regularly, or else they'd be eaten by a moth called the gypsy moth. Davis just laughed it off, but for some reason, he found himself really wanting to talk to the man on the train. He felt like a jerk for lying to the guy all this time. Only then does he learn the man has changed jobs too.
I didn't love my wife. I know it's sad to say, but now that she's gone, I don't even feel sad or pain or hurt.
Well, what do you feel?
I couldn't tell you why I did it.
In a moment that felt like true sorrow, Davis pulled the emergency brake on the train. He wanted to pause his life. The officers didn't understand until they learned he had just lost his wife. Davis was released as a special case. Davis's parents suggested he move back home for a while, but Davis found it laughable. He felt perfectly fine, so why did everyone else think he wasn't? He poured everything that had happened recently into a second complaint letter. When that bouquet of white flowers finally wilted, his parents returned to their hometown. Afterward, Davis sat alone at the airport for 2 hours. He watched people rush by, dragging their luggage, and suddenly felt overwhelmed by curiosity. He wondered what people carried in their bags and felt a strange urge to open every suitcase. He imagined himself as a security officer, holding a rifle and arresting criminals. Davis began to notice things he'd never paid attention to before. Ever since his wife passed, everything felt like a metaphor. Davis felt like a great tree torn out by the roots, and at the same time, like the storm that ripped it from the ground. He couldn't tell if it was real or imagined, but he began to feel like someone was following him. He never stopped writing, but one day, after returning home, Davis suddenly went berserk and grabbed his toolbox. The refrigerator was leaking. It was the last thing his wife had mentioned to him, in the note he'd casually thrown away. But instead of fixing it, Davis completely tore the fridge apart. Everything ended up in chaos. That's when, at 2 a.m, the phone rang. His complaint letter had gotten a reply. The voice on the other end belonged to a tired woman who called herself Karen. She said his letter had moved her to tears.
I'm sorry if...
Your letters made me cry, Mr. Mitchell. Do you have anyone to talk to? I'm gonna submit your claim to management. In the meantime, is there something else I can do for you, Mr. Mitchell?
Wait. Karen Moreno, that's your name?
This is weird. I shouldn't have called. I'm gonna contact you at a more reasonable hour. I'm sorry again, Mr. Mitchell. This is so unprofessional.
Customer service is a profession.
The next day, Davis began searching for Karen online. He felt an inexplicable desire to keep talking to her, but his computer froze at just the wrong moment. Later that evening, the phone rang again. Davis knew it had to be Karen. He'd already saved her number in his contacts. Using the complaint as their pretext, they kept each other company during those boring hours. Davis started to wonder what Karen looked like. He visited the restaurant Karen had mentioned, ordered the same meal she liked, and listened to the records she recommended. What he didn't expect was that Karen was right outside, in the parking lot. She was a blonde woman, smoking silently in her car. She watched Davis for a moment, then turned and left.
No, wait, I have another letter here for you.
Davis began spacing out often, even asking in meetings if a certain song sounded sad. What shocked his colleagues more was when he removed a bathroom stall door, and then there was that computer that kept crashing. Not to mention the flickering wall lamp at Phil's house. Davis left work early one day and followed the address from the letter to Karen's office. But Karen wasn't there that day. A man stopped Davis at the door, and he had no choice but to leave. Because of all these unusual behaviors, Phil started hinting that Davis should see a doctor. But at home, Davis couldn't help himself. He tore apart the coffee machine Julia had bought before she passed and told Karen about it.
Why did you call me, Mr. Mitchell?
Why'd you answer?
There's something about your letters. I'm rereading one right now in my tub. I'm not bathing or anything. I just sit here. It's quiet. And I don't want to wake up my son. Did I mention I have a son?
No.
Yeah, he's 15. But looks 12.
During their conversation, Davis learned Karen had a 15-year-old son, very smart and mature. Then she quickly ended the call. She told Davis he shouldn't have come to her office. It was a dangerous precedent, but in truth, they had already met. It was a few days after Davis had mailed the letter. On the train, he noticed a woman watching him intently. On a whim, he approached her. Something about her felt special. Though it was their first meeting, he found himself opening up. Davis said he didn't love his wife. Just as he was about to ask the woman's name, she got off the train and vanished.
I spent the next 10 minutes kicking myself.
What are the chances I'd ever see this woman again? Fortunately, she left her magazine on the seat.
I think you know who it was addressed to. And Scarsdale ain't her stop. No more games, Karen. I'll see you soon.
Suddenly, the doorbell rang. Davis had found Karen's house. But the one who answered the door was a man. It turned out the guy who stopped Davis earlier was Karen's boyfriend, Carl. Davis showed up at Karen's house in the middle of the night, and he assumed Davis had bad intentions. Luckily, Karen stepped in just in time. All Davis wanted was to deliver the letter in person. She was the only one he could talk to. But Karen's son, watching from upstairs, saw everything. To keep Carl from noticing, Karen threw the letter into the trash. Carl was uneasy. He was about to leave on a business trip, and now this strange man had entered Karen's life. But in Karen's eyes, Davis was simply too lonely, and he didn't even realize he was grieving. Gradually, Karen even found herself paying attention to the luggage and the security guards, too. After Carl left, she eagerly pulled the letter out of the trash.
Dear Karen, Phil.
Davis was furious with Phil. Just because he had dismantled a few things, Phil had suspended the project Davis had been leading. The reason was that the team believed Davis was mentally unstable. Phil was curious why Davis was doing all this, but even Davis couldn't explain it himself. It felt like part of his heart was missing, so he kept breaking things, hoping to recover something from the ruins. As he spoke, Davis even considered dismantling the antique clock Phil had inherited from his great-grandmother. Phil's only response was, "I want you to take some time off." But Davis couldn't stop. Or maybe he was too afraid to stop. Passing by a construction site, Davis volunteered to help for free. When the workers hesitated, Davis pulled out his wallet and handed them $50. Worried they'd refuse, he threw in 2 more large bills. Finally, Davis had an outlet to release his emotions. But the small hammer felt weak in his hands. So one of the workers handed him a sledgehammer. And so Davis began smashing the walls with full force, one blow after another. If he couldn't break it with the hammer, he'd saw it to pieces. He repeated the cycle of breaking and tearing down, hurling everything away with growing intensity. Davis spent days like this, numb, impulsive, and relentless. At home, he'd collapse silently by the corner of the bed, staring at the TV without a word. Then one night, Karen unexpectedly showed up at his door. She marveled at how Davis had the kind of house everyone dreamed of.
It's the kind of house people dream of living in.
I hate this house. It's just shiny stuff.
So that night, Davis went home with Karen. Karen told him outright that she wouldn't sleep with him. Davis was surprised. He hadn't even thought about that. They fell asleep together to gentle music, side by side. Karen suddenly admitted she didn't actually love her boyfriend. After losing her husband, she'd instinctively sought someone to lean on. Carl loved her deeply, but Karen felt she didn't deserve it.
I'd like to be able to do what you do. To be completely honest.
I think you just were.
Not even close.
The next morning, Davis met Karen's son, Chris. Just as Karen had said, Chris had lost his father at a young age, and now he was sharp-tongued and way too mature for his age. Chris asked bluntly if Davis was with his mom. Davis simply told the truth and didn't try to lecture him. Before leaving, he offered one piece of advice. If Chris wanted to swear, he shouldn't do it too often. Otherwise, he'd just sound cheap and stupid. His voicemail was overflowing with messages. Phil kept urging Davis to get back on track. Julia's foundation still needed his help, but Davis never picked up the phone. He'd wake up early, head to the construction site, and talk to Karen on the phone during breaks. Davis also noticed that every day, a strange station wagon seemed to be following him. Sometimes it would even park outside his house overnight. As they grew more familiar with each other, Karen brought Davis to an abandoned warehouse. To Davis's surprise, tucked in the back was a vintage carousel. An old man sighed, saying no one liked slow carousels anymore. People preferred roller coasters, fast, high, and over in a flash. So he had no choice but to dismantle the carousel. When Davis stepped out of the warehouse, he saw the endless sea stretching before him, and he heard the sound of the waves. With wild abandon, he and Karen ran toward the ocean as if they were birds trying to fly.
Julia loved the ocean. We used to spend our summers at her folks' place in East Hampton. That's where she wanted to be.
You miss her?
Davis had always thought he didn't love his wife, but when he saw her reflection in the mirror again, he cried. It was the first time he'd cried since Julia died, but it didn't feel like relief. It was stifled and painful. So finally, Davis went to see a doctor. The doctor gave him a full examination.
Davis, I'm not sure how to tell you this. Come on. Part of your heart is missing.
What? How did that happen?
Judging by the bite pattern, I'd say gypsy moths.
But when Davis came to, he realized everything that had just happened was in his mind. And the memories of Julia, her image, started flooding back more and more often. He wanted to talk to Karen again, but when he got to her place, he found Chris throwing a party all by himself. It turned out that Chris had been suspended from school due to mental health issues and an early relationship. He resented this stranger in his house, especially with Mom's boyfriend conveniently gone. He lashed out, accusing Davis of having something going on with Karen.
Davis is a friend of mine. We've been spending time together because that's what friends do. You spend time.
You're so transparent.
The man's wife just died. Have some compassion, you little shit.
Sorry.
Karen apologized for not keeping her emotions in check. Chris also found Davis confusing. He just lost the love of his life, yet he didn't seem sad at all. But only Davis knew. He was already drowning in grief, unable to escape. The construction site was the only place where he could smash the memories into dust, until one misstep on a wooden plank sent a sharp pain shooting through him, and he screamed in agony. For a moment, that pain pulled Davis out of the memories, grounding him in the reality that he was still alive. But Davis wasn't the only one suffering from the loss of love. Karen and Chris were both struggling in their own ways, especially Chris, who was clearly off balance during his turbulent teenage years. That night, Karen and Davis built a makeshift fortress out of the couch cushions, just like two kids. Karen asked Davis what the last thing was that truly mattered to him, but Davis changed the subject, saying that when he was young, all he cared about was running fast. Back then, he was always the slowest kid in races. He hated being slow. Even now, he said, he still wanted to outrun everyone. But in some ways, Davis was still very slow. And what Karen feared most was finally starting to happen. Chris stood in the bathroom, pointing a handgun at his reflection in the mirror. Then his gaze shifted toward the lipstick nearby. He wondered what he'd look like wearing it. Just then, Davis walked in unexpectedly. Chris quickly tossed the lipstick aside, but Davis noticed the gun behind him. It was the one Karen's boyfriend had hidden away.
Ever shot a gun before?
Still, Davis didn't scold him. Instead, he took Chris into the woods and fired a few rounds. Davis wasn't satisfied, though. There weren't any animals around to hunt, so he made a bold move. He put on a bulletproof vest and told Chris to shoot him.
Shit. What'd it feel like?
Later, Davis was surprised to find that Chris knew how to play the drums. He started moving to the rhythm without even realizing it. Davis felt conflicted. He didn't feel sad, yet he was desperately trying to find happiness in every way possible. He told Chris to save the song to his headphones. Then Davis completely let himself go, dancing wildly, unconcerned with how others saw him. He danced his way straight to the office. At that moment, Phil was interviewing a student for the scholarship, someone not only academically gifted but also a local swimming champion. But Davis barged in and interrupted what should have been his responsibility, announcing to everyone that the reason he didn't like swimming was because people always pee in the pool. The atmosphere instantly became unbearably awkward. Phil had reached his limit.
I don't understand where this is coming from. This contempt, this blatant disrespect.
Something doesn't feel right, Phil. This whole thing, I want to do something for her, but it just doesn't.
You are not feeling right. We're picking the finalists today. I want it signed on my desk by tomorrow.
Davis had messed everything up again. His careless attitude always left him unable to manage relationships. He suddenly thought of his wife again, of those embraces he had always taken for granted. She'd never crossed his mind like this when she was alive, but her presence only made things worse. The next day, Davis took Chris to a hardware store. He'd decided it was time to end things, but first he needed tools. But Chris asked a serious question.
Do you think I'm gay?
He was confused. He liked girls his age, but also found older boys attractive.
He's a junior and we have the same gym class too. We have to get changed together.
Do you watch him when you get changed?
No?
Well, then I don't think you're gay, Chris.
I have to try not to look. I have to tell myself not to.
Yeah, no, that's normal, you're young and... I would say that you're probably gay. Or you're bisexual. But either way, you're gonna get tortured. My advice to you would be to pretend that you like girls for the next few years and then move into the city.
Davis didn't mock or dismiss him. He just gave the best advice he could. Davis didn't realize how much he was beginning to care about the people around him, and Chris was grateful to have such a grown-up friend during the most confusing time of his life. With their tools in hand, they returned home. Davis didn't say a word. He just picked up the sledgehammer and swung. This house was just like Davis's heart, whole on the outside but already shattered within. He wanted to start over. He had to move forward. To do that, Davis had to empty the house and his heart of every trace of Julia. Otherwise, he'd never be free. While taking a break, Chris stared at Davis, realizing he had never seen him smile. Just then, the station wagon reappeared. Davis lost it. He grabbed a nearby rock and hurled it toward the vehicle. Karen thanked Davis for being there for Chris while she was away, but Davis didn't think it was enough. The next day, he ordered a bulldozer online, intending to level the house completely. Unfortunately, the bulldozer broke down within minutes. Davis had no choice but to keep doing it all by hand. Alone, he entered Julia's bedroom, the one place he'd never touched, the closest place to her. But today, Davis was ready. He brought the sledgehammer down hard on her makeup vanity again and again until the force broke the hammer itself. Then he discovered something hidden behind the cabinet. It was a hospital pregnancy report. Julia had once been pregnant and never told him. She'd even terminated the pregnancy in secret. Davis collapsed to the floor, drained of all strength. The sunlight that day felt especially harsh. He pulled down the sun visor and found yet another note tucked behind it. But in his frustration, Davis had no interest in reading it. He yanked it off like a scrap of paper and tossed it aside. He rushed to shave and get dressed. That night was Julia's memorial, and also the scholarship ceremony. But what enraged Phil was that Davis showed up with Karen.
Bringing another woman here tonight?
Phil, it's not what you
How
think.
dare you? Every day I wake up thinking, why her? It should have been you!
Phil's scathing words left Davis unable to respond. Meanwhile, Karen was approached by a young man whose eyes were full of contempt and whose words were rude. She felt insulted and walked away. When she returned to the venue, she was shocked to see that the rude guy was actually the scholarship recipient. Karen's mocking laughter brought the entire room to a sudden silence. Davis couldn't hold back anymore.
Last year, did she tell you she was pregnant? Did you know? Why didn't she tell me?
Karen left alone, and Davis was stopped at the door by his mother-in-law.
It wasn't yours. She was seeing someone. And I took her for the procedure. I wish she'd kept it.
Phil sat slumped in his chair, clearly unaware of any of it. Julia's face appeared once again in Davis's mind. He felt an overwhelming urge to talk to Karen, but when he walked into her house, he discovered that Carl had returned. Carl slammed Davis to the ground and beat him badly. Ironically, that same day, Davis finally received the compensation for the stuck chocolate bar. Meanwhile, Karen had gotten off the train early after receiving a call from the police. Chris had snuck into a certain kind of bar and was brutally assaulted, nearly losing his life. People always seem to understand the value of what they have only after it's gone. Losing her son was more than Karen could bear. She promised that no matter what happened in the future, she would respect Chris's choices. Davis went alone to visit his wife's grave. He wanted to understand, why had she done what she did? But just then, the station wagon that had been following him for so long showed up again. Davis was sure the man inside must be Julia's lover, but when he turned around, he saw a man about his age, hair already graying. It turned out he was the driver responsible for the accident. The man apologized again and again. He said he couldn't forgive himself, which is why he followed Davis every day. But some people are gone forever. The only thing the living can do now is forgive one another. The sun was blazing that day. Back in the car, Davis picked up the crumpled note he'd tossed aside earlier. In that moment, Davis finally realized that he had always loved his wife and loved her deeply, and now he embraced every memory of her. He faced the sorrow head-on, fully and without fear. Davis went to find Phil. He had decided to do something for his wife, and when Phil saw the tears on Davis's face, he knew there was nothing more that needed to be said. Davis no longer woke up at 5:30 every morning. He had found his own rhythm. He had reclaimed his life.
Dear Davis, thanks for your letter. I'm recovering slowly but surely. Despite the ass kicking, I must say, being myself feels good. By the way, Mom left Carl, FYI. I have a little gift for you. Be at Pier 54 this Saturday at 11 a.m. sharp.
3, 2,
Trust me.
1!
P.S. Go yourself.
On his way home, a group of children brushed past him on the street. Then, Out of nowhere, a powerful gust of wind rushed from behind. Davis took a deep breath and sprinted forward, leaving everyone in the dust. As for the final thing Davis did for Julia, he restored the old carousel. True grief isn't just sadness. It's an emptiness, like your soul has slipped out of your body. A numbness that lifts you out of the pain without even trying. Do you still remember that time? That stretch of days you endured silently, without anyone knowing? The pillow soaked with moldy dreams, and in those dreams, the ones you longed to hold were out of reach. The death of a loved one isn't a storm that passes. It's a lifelong dampness. I remain trapped in this dampness, stirring up storms in every calm and quiet day. But we all have to go on living, and live better, so we must embrace our sorrow, then tear it all down, just like the film's title, Demolition. Maybe life's burdens and the wear of time have dulled your love, but some love stories don't truly end. They only pause at the halfway mark. Because of death, because of parting, this was a love story with only a first half. And yes, you still love her.